You're listening to Ricky and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
All right, welcome back. I'm actually really excited about this episode, Ricky. I don't know why, because I don't have a lot of material for it, but I'm just excited. So today we're going to be talking about how to avoid falling into the dreaded roommate phase of a relationship. If you're kind of in a lull, you're kind of leading parallel lives, you don't know what happened.
Yeah.
We want to talk about how to avoid that roommate stage that nobody wants to ever feel like we're just passing in the night. Their passion has kind of left the relationship. We used to have a spark, but now it doesn't really feel like it. And we also want to talk about how to rekindle that flame, because we do think that it's possible. Obviously, in my opinion, it does, usually takes both people wanting to reciprocate these actions, but even one person can change the atmosphere of a relationship. So that's what we want to dive into today and help anybody in that position.
And I think it's interesting that you call it a phase, because a relationship doesn't necessarily have to go through this. But I think our tendency to call something like this a phase is because of how normal it is. I think this is a pitfall that tons and tons, maybe most relationships fall into at one time or another. I know that I've experienced this personally. I don't know about you, but
as have I. Yeah. And it's my point of view, my perspective is, if you're not intentionally trying to prevent it, then you will end up in a kind of a complacent relationship. That's just my perspective. Is the natural state of your relationship is to drift towards complacency, and or just kind of we lead our own lives. We've kind of forgotten about each other. I haven't read the book, but Gottman has a really good book on when kids get in the mix when you have your first kid.
Yeah.
And his stats are marital dissatisfaction either jumps up or decreases. I can't remember, by like 60% as soon as the first kid.
Yes. Yeah. When a child is born, that married couple experiences some of the least satisfying years of
100%.
their couplehood, which is a drag. And also when children leave home, they tend to kind of rebound also, they've found, and things get way better.
Yeah, I hope that's true. Yeah, I mean,
don't quote us on that, but
it can go either way. Sometimes
Absolutely.
when kids leave the house, the parents realize that the kids were really the only thing that was holding them together.
Yeah. Do you want to hear something funny, Jimmy?
Yeah.
When my sister and I grew up and moved out, my mom called me and she said, "Now my job is to figure out who this man is who's living in my house." And I just love that. Yeah, I just love that. It was like she'd been focusing on momming for, 20, 25 years.
Yep.
And now she's like, "Who's this man that's here? I don't even feel like I know him."
Yeah. So yeah, this subject is near and dear to my heart, because I unfortunately, most people don't really seek out advice, and they don't really seek out relationship content until there's a problem.
Yeah.
Which is tragic, because obviously a lot of the problems that we all face in relationships are preventable, and they really should be talked about upfront when things are going great, when things are fine in the relationship. This is when we should be having those talks. Unfortunately, we wait far too long. I read some crazy stat that, we all know that the average divorce rate is around like 7 years. That's probably where that 7-year itch saying came from. The average time that couples seek counseling is 6 years. And I guarantee I guarantee you that it's not like things were great for the last couple of years. Like things are slowly going downhill. And it's not until 6 years where they're like, are we even going to make it? Like, is this a point where it's kind of a fork in the road situation where it's like, maybe we shouldn't be together, or maybe we should go get help. Yeah. And so my point is that I'm just passionate about, I don't want you guys to enter the roommate phase. And even if you are, I want both of you, I desperately plead with both of you to like try some of these things to get back on track.
Yeah, you have literally nothing to lose, right? Except your marriage, which no big deal, right? No, it's really where Jimmy and I both feel really passionate about this. The connection and spark must be, it's something that we have to build and something that we have to focus on. It's not going to just burn. Yes, maintain. Thank you. It's not just going to burn on its own. That's not our default setting. We have to work on this stuff.
Yes. So tell me, what adds logs to the fire of the...
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So do we want to jump right in with what adds logs to the fire? Or are we going to talk first about what kind of things might be pouring water on our fire?
Yeah, let's talk about some of the things that pour water, since that's usually what people inevitably, unfortunately, fall into.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the low-hanging fruit, the easiest one to think of, would be a lack of physical intimacy. I think that's a lot of people's first warning sign that something is amiss. If there's a lack of cuddling, obviously, if there's a lack of sex, but also if you find that you're going days or weeks without any casual touching either, that is a huge sign that you're headed for one-way ticket to roommateville, I would say.
Yeah. I would also add to that so often there's one partner who wishes there was more physical affection in the relationship. And when we say that, we're obviously not just talking about the bedroom. We're talking about all the different forms of intimacy, the kissing and the hugging and just random touching and playfulness in the relationship. I think that one person tends to want that stuff, and they're potentially nervous or scared to, or they've asked for it in the past and it hasn't really been prioritized by the other partner and they've stopped asking. So if there was a couple listening to this right now, I would encourage you, please don't forget to ask your partner, like, hey, how important is that to you? Is that something that you miss in our relationship? And you might be surprised when they say, oh, I miss that so much, but I've been afraid to tell you because it hurts, because like you tend to forget when I tell you.
Totally. So, I think I love that you said that too. If you're the partner who is like, we're probably fine on the physical intimacy then you're probably the partner who needs to ask, hey, do we touch enough for your comfort? Like, is that, and like Jimmy said, you might be surprised at what they say.
You might be very surprised. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff is all, the foundation is like trying to build an atmosphere where you tell your partner, like, I want to know how you feel about this stuff. Like, I really do care. If you can get two people who say, I really do care, that doesn't mean that our fear is going to go away. It's still scary to be vulnerable sometimes, especially when we have trust issues or because of our past or yada, yada. Or we've been hurt by this partner, and it's still scary, but we can find that courage a lot more if somebody's actively saying, like, in the past, I haven't shown up, but I really do want to show up in the future. Like, I really do care.
Yeah.
So please don't neglect saying that to your partner.
I know too, I'm the type of partner who sometimes has a lot of trouble bringing up things that bother me. That's like, I tend to stay quiet and just think like, how can I solve this on my own instead of bringing it to my partner. So when he brings it up first, when he comes to me and says, hey, there's something, I'm wondering how you're feeling about this. Like, the floodgates open. I'm more able to speak my mind and let him know what's up if he's the one who initiates that conversation.
Not to mention the fact that when you initiate it, that partner is less likely to bring it up later in a more critical and passive aggressive way. If you open the door to say, like, I'm open, like, I want to know what's on your heart. I want to know about your inner world. I want to know about your needs. Because a lot of us feel kind of selfish to even have needs, but what we inevitably do is we wait a really long time. We expect them to read our minds, or we start to create this story of, we've been together for so long. Like, how can they not know what I need? They know what I need, and they're just neglecting me. And once we create that story, we find ways to support that narrative, and it's so dangerous. So if someone could come to you and say, I want you to be vulnerable about this, like, I want to be a safe place for you, it might cause you to not be so critical in the future, or store up that resentment. So
totally. So this one, let's make some noise. Let's wake Frank up. right? Hey, Frank, this one's for
Yeah.
you. She's not going to be so naggy or so explosive about things if you bring it up first. So that's a nice tip. That's a nice tip
Yeah.
for the folks, for
And
the partners who feel nagged. Yeah, please.
Can I give a quick tip on when it comes to physical intimacy? This could be a whole episode on itself, so I'm going to keep it real short. But for a lot of men, physical intimacy means sex. They don't.
Right.
I can empathize with them because sometimes men weren't really taught any other forms of connection and closeness, so they legitimately just don't know, and or they don't think that they would get anything else out of. They just feel like, well, I feel closest to her when we're in the bedroom.
Right.
For you, you really need to focus on other forms of intimacy. You need to focus on the hugging. You need to focus on the intimate communication. You need to focus on having those talks alone that we just described, that, you know, while you're sitting on each other, while you're touching each other, those are intimate moments. Like, those are very intimate moments. And you need to realize that you can't just expect the bedroom when you haven't really put in all those other things. And you might find that you actually do enjoy other forms of physical intimacy. So I would encourage you to try them more and more. Don't just default to like, well, I just like the bedroom. That's how I feel close. Well, we'll just give it a go on all the other forms. Like, do some research, look it up, anyways.
Yeah. Well, and we might pull this into the future bullet points that we're going to be talking about. But so obviously roommates don't have sex, right? But another good point to make is roommates are not going to run up to the door to greet each other when they get home. Roommates aren't going to hug each other from behind while one person's cooking. The physical touch things that you do don't have to be inherently sexual, but there's a lot of physical touch that it would be kind of weird if roommates did. So if you're like, ooh, that would be weird for me to do to a roommate, might be a great thing to try with your spouse to try to bring some spark back.
I love that you said that. I wrote down, the one thing that I wrote down for this was, I just thought it was a good idea, like, surprise each other. And what I wrote down was like date nights, hugs and kisses. Like, there's something special when my wife surprises me, when I didn't see it coming. I didn't see her kiss coming. I didn't see her hug coming. Like, that just gives you such a feeling of, you feel more prioritized. And that's kind of what I'm talking about for the men out there. Like, I know that you feel prioritized and desired when she does that. Even if at this stage you're not having the bedroom time that you want, you can still feel prioritized and desired when she's doing those other things. So if you're stuck in a roommate phase, all I'm saying is that let's not think that the only way out is like, well, we just need to have more bedroom time. Like, right. Let's not go that route yet. Let's focus on what she needs to feel comfortable and safe and secure in the bedroom. And it might be some of these things that you also get pleasure when she does too. So anyways.
Yeah. And that goes for the ladies as well. If you're saying, oh, it feels like we're feeling more like roommates, I think we need to be having more sex. You might be dealing with a touch starved man too, who needs more hugs. He needs more butt pinches in the kitchen that don't lead to sex. He just needs to know that you enjoy physical contact with him at all.
Yeah. And if you're stuck, I just would encourage you to have that conversation. Even if you feel like all he wants is the bedroom and you just kind of have this like general, like that's so annoying. Have a conversation with him. Say, I want to know what that means to you. Tell me what you experience when we do that. I'm curious. I want to know. Like, you say that that's kind of the only thing that you want. That means you must like it. Tell me what you like about it.
Oh, that's a great conversation you could have.
It's a great way to kind of cheat him he's kind of going to be vulnerable. He can't just stop it with like, I like it. It's like, okay, but why do you like it? What do you like about it? Like, I just want to know. And it might lead to more vulnerable conversations. And he might start to realize, I can open up. I can tell you about how good things feel and yada, yada. And I don't have to feel shame for that.
Hopefully not. I think, it seems like a lot of men kind of like talking about that too. Like, oh, she's talking about bedroom stuff. So he might be more likely to engage in that conversation than tell me when you feel closest to me. Like, that can be a little off-putting for men, but if it's like, tell me what you like about bedroom time, they might be a little more likely to open up.
Yeah. The next thing I wrote down, I don't mean to change the subject, but I feel
like we've been on this one too long. Let's switch it up.
The next thing I wrote down was complacency. And I feel like when you get into the roommate phase, which I've been in, which Ricky said perfectly. You don't have to enter. This isn't a phase that everyone has to enter. This is just an unfortunate phase that a lot of people enter because we're not being proactive about protecting it mutually.
Well said. Yeah.
Complacency is a huge, I mean, like that's a big part of it. What I think of when I think of complacency is just falling into the regular routines. Like for instance, like we kind of got into a routine where we both just got into bed separately and put our headphones in, listened to whatever we were listening to. And then it was just a quick peck, good night. And that was it. And eventually, you know, you can get very complacent and realize like that since I wasn't really prioritizing any additional intimacy for whatever reason, like we said, sometimes people feel scared to, but for whatever reason, it can start to wear on just the overall atmosphere of the relationship where it's like, this is, you know, we've kind of gotten complacent.
Totally. It's very easy to fall into routines that are not sexy at all and not connecting.
Yes, not connecting is such a great way to put that. Yeah.
And as far as complacency goes too, I know I've been guilty of this. In the beginning of my relationship, I used to make sure that I looked my absolute best every single time I saw my partner. And granted, that's not sustainable and I don't recommend that. But at the same time, just because my partner and I are 5 years into this thing doesn't mean he doesn't really appreciate it when he comes home and I look amazing. He always notices, he always says something. And most importantly, he always feels prioritized and wanted when he gets home. And I'm like, I've clearly done myself up for him, you know?
Yeah. Or for your date or for whatever.
Or for a date.
I love that.
Yeah. That's the other thing, Jimmy. I don't know if you guys do this, but we'll notice, Chris and I will notice that during the week, we look kind of crummy. No offense to us, but you know, we're not putting any special effort into that. And then if we have a Friday night date scheduled, it's shocking how well we clean up. And I'm it's really kind of sad that we're not doing that for ourselves and each other on a more regular basis, you know?
Yeah. So I would push back a little bit on that just because we never argue. So I should probably push back a little bit. I don't think it's like necessary. I know what you're saying. And I'm probably not even disagreeing with you when I say this, but it's obviously not necessary that you like have to look nice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially if you have a date night Friday, please dress go all sweatpants. But like, I think that when I hear that, I hear it's just special when because sometimes what happens is you kind of just do the sweatpant thing. And then when you have your date on Friday, nobody gets dolled up at all. Neither person. You're still going out and you're just, and I'm just like, I think you're missing an opportunity. You're just missing a little opportunity there. The other thing I wrote down is just like,
thank you.
It's just like taking each other for granted in a way. Like we can get complacent I'm sure we're going to mention like appreciation, how important appreciation is and all that stuff, but that kind of falls into the complacency when you're not really intentional. It really all comes down to intentionality. Like, how do you beat complacency? You be intentional about about what you said, which is certain things lead to closeness. Certain things can put us in a category where we kind of slowly drift away from closeness without realizing it. And you just have to be intentional. So like, we can talk about that more of just like the breakdown of like, well, what does lead to communication?
Yeah.
And we're going to say 100 things throughout this episode peppered of like what leads to communication. Just pick a couple of them and ask your partner, do you think that would lead to communication or connection? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I might scoot down to the next one.
Let's
and I actually hate the way that this is worded. So I'm going to read it as it's written down and then we're going to modify it a little bit. The way this is written down is unequal division of labor. And I'm sure that you have thoughts on this, Jimmy. The division of labor around the house, it can't really be truly equal, right? That's tough. That's tough.
That's true. You're never going to get there. Yeah,
totally. So when I don't want to tell the audience that we need an equal division of labor, but what we do need is a division of labor that feels good for both people. It feels like it honors both people's abilities and energy levels. And maybe one partner has a little bit more juice one week and maybe the next one has a little bit more the next. it needs to be more of a conversation that deeply honors both people and respects what they need and want for the household. Granted, roommates need this also. So that's
Yeah.
a little tough, but I would argue that in a roommate situation, you are aiming for a little bit more equality. And in
Yes.
a loving relationship, I just love it. There's an account on Instagram that I follow. It's the 80-80 relationship. And I kind of enjoy them because the concept of we're not two people striving for 50-50. We're two people striving for 80-80. We're both going to go a little bit farther than we need to because we really love this person and want everything to go well in the household and in the relationship. You've got things to say. I can see it on your face.
No, I always have things to say. No, you were saying that beautifully. I really didn't want to stop you. But what you said was perfect. It really just boils down to a conversation, because one of the reasons that we get into this roommate phase or get into a lull in our relationship where we're just complacent, so much of the time, if I asked one partner, are you feeling satisfied with the way the division of labor is in the house, the domestic labor, the mental load, how much of a stress is that on you? And people would be, I think that the majority of people in this phase of just like where things aren't, you're just feeling disconnected, feeling like two ships passing in the night. I bet that that's a huge component of just like, I feel like I can't rely on them for X, Y, and Z, especially when it comes to the domestic labor. So it doesn't boil down to equality per se, meaning like equality, meaning like quantity. It's more of a quality of like a mindset of, I truly do care about what is your stress in this area? Like, I do not want you to feel like you can't rely on me. I don't want you to feel stressed. I don't want you to feel like it's all on your shoulders. When we can get to that point where we have two people that say, I really don't want you to feel like all this is on your shoulders. Let's figure out a system that works for us. Dr. Stan Tatkin, I love listening. I love like replaying him in my head. He always talked about agreements, like come to an agreement together. Like, it's so simple and yet it's so complicated. Like, rarely do we do this where we're like, hey, I want us to come to an agreement together on the domestic labor and the mental load. Like, where do you feel like I'm potentially kind of unintentionally abandoning you in that area? You have those types of conversations where you can both actually talk about it in a respectful and vulnerable way. You're being intentional. That's what being intentional is. So
good. That was really well said. I really like that.
Oh, thank you.
Should I scoot down to the next one?
Oh, I'd love,
next
absolutely.
Bullet point. All right. Living on parallel schedules. I personally know a lot of couples who are like this. I'm sure you do too. It takes a lot of work to make a household run. I know that, especially with children. It takes a lot of work to make a household run and be healthy and happy with children in it, or with very important or time-consuming jobs. But so many couples their household is functioning and they're getting to work on time and the kids are getting to school, but they're never seeing each other. And that's the phrase that Jimmy kept saying. It feels like your ship's passing in the night. You can see each other, but you never really stop. You never really stop and have any meaningful exchanges.
Yeah.
This is a huge thing that leads to the roommate experience, because I've had roommates. I had a lot of roommates in college and I didn't know their schedule. They had their schedule. I had my schedule. Sometimes we would eat dinner together, and a lot of couples are living that life right now.
Yeah. We have to remember that the goal is not like, yes, we're two individuals, but the goal isn't just like fierce independence.
Right.
You are supposed to be interdependent. You're supposed to feel connected. And there's a way to do that. You can feel close and connected to your partner and still have super weird schedules. Like there's tons of people that one person works the night shift, one person works the day shift. The only time they see each other is like dropping off a kid or something like that. Like, or not even dropping, like handing off, like, hey, now they're your response. Like, I'm going to go to work now, or I'm going to go to sleep now.
Totally. Jimmy, I would just, brought it up. I'm an extreme case of that as well. My partner works away from home Like a third of the year. Like a third of the year, he's not even here. And I just felt weird about saying that to the world. But that's okay.
I don't think they minded.
My dog will bite you though if you come after me. Anyway,
okay, I get it now.
but because he's not, just because he's not here at the house, it doesn't mean he's not a very huge part of my day. We've got good morning calls every single morning. We've got good night calls every single night. And every now and then we'll send each other a picture message of, he has beautiful views out on his jobs. And I can take pictures of the animals so that he doesn't feel so far away from home. And that's the thing. Just because you have weird schedules or you don't see each other that often, it doesn't mean that you have to be completely disconnected.
I love that. So Gottman talks a lot about, I don't know if he talks a lot about it, but I've heard it in multiple different books. He talks about rituals that you have together.
Yes.
And this is the same type of thing. Like this goes back to the intentionality. This goes back to, if you have these weird schedules, you have to be extra intentional about establishing these rituals. Rick, you just talked about it. Like we have a call schedule. Like unless there's an interruption, I'm going to call you at this time, or we're going to try to do this. It's all just about, I want us to feel connected even when we're not, in the same, because closeness, at the end of the day, closeness has nothing to do with proximity. I can live with someone and feel disconnected with them, as opposed to you, who your fiance, hopefully everyone knows you're engaged now. Congratulations. Your fiance could be, who knows, hundreds of miles away, and you two could feel more connected than somebody living under the same roof.
Absolutely.
Why? Because you're trying to establish these rituals of connection and closeness. And that makes all the difference in the end. And if you don't know where to start, dude, ask your partner. Yes. What kind of rituals would you like to establish?
Yeah.
They might surprise you. They might, if they're like, well, if I'm honest, like we don't really hug very much. I'd love a hug before work. I'd love a kiss before work. I would love some sort of a goodbye ritual when we're both leaving, or when we come back from work together, when we're going to bed. I would love this, I would love us to connect in this way. You might be surprised that your partner, they might just tell you exactly what they would love to feel close to you.
I think texting can be an easy way to infuse some closeness in the day. I was about to call it low effort, but I'm not going to do that, because I think for some people it takes a lot of effort to compose a nice text.
It's true.
But you can ask your partner, what's the favorite kind of text that you could receive from me? What kind of text do you get from me that lights you up? And they can tell you, and man, it really doesn't take that much effort to craft them one of those texts during the day, It's
so true. It's so true. Like, yeah, part of me just wants to write all this out on like a sheet of paper just to help somebody. Like I'm thinking of the Frank who's like, I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, this is what you're going to do in the morning. You're going to hug her for 6 seconds. You're going to give her a kiss. You're going to then you're going to text her something that you appreciate about her. Then you're going to text her something sweet. Like on your lunch break, you're going to do this. Like it really is all these, it feels kind of stupid to make these little lists, but at the end of the day, this is what you're just trying to you're trying to get used to a rhythm. It's just like working out.
Jimmy, I think we should try that. You're going to have to wait till my partner's back for some significant amount of time, but you and I should make that list. It'll be our Frank list.
A connection
That's what we'll
list.
call it. Yeah. Connection list, for Frank in parentheses. And I wonder if we did those things consistently every day for a week and then recorded a podcast to talk about how that went for us. I love that. I bet it would be an amazing thing to recall to the audience. So,
yeah. And this goes back to, I don't know, we talk about this a lot, and I don't know if this is necessarily needed in this exact conversation, but it does play a role. We've talked about check-ins, and when you're in this disconnected phase, that's why I would love it if you were both open to doing check-ins. Now, check-ins are difficult. If for anyone who doesn't know what a check-in is, if Bricky was my partner, I would be like, hey, let's do a check-in. We do it weekly, where I'd be like, hey, what went right this week? Where were some areas where you felt loved, prioritized, valued? What did I get right? And then was there any areas where you felt like you were either rejected, or was there an area where you just kind of felt like, I don't really want to bring this up, it's not a big deal, but like, if I'm being honest, I did feel like you kind of just ignored me or neglected me in this area.
Yeah.
And those check-ins are so important to be able to have that safe environment where it's just like, hey, we're being intentional about this moment where we're going to talk about something that is not easy to talk about. It's not easy to say, what could I get right? Or what could I do better? That's a really difficult question to ask.
It is difficult.
But you want to be a great partner? You want both of you be a great partner? Dare to ask the question, where could I improve a little bit in this relationship?
Yeah.
And then accept their answer and not just like berate them about it.
Yeah, I like that. I have I guess a baby step easier thing.
Yeah.
For couples that want to try that specific thing. For a long time, my partner and I, at the end of the night, he would say, okay, let's talk about our roses and thorns for the day. Have you heard of this, Jimmy? Have you heard of the roses and thorns? Anyway, so he's like, maybe tell me 3 things that were like a great part of your day. And this could be a great part of your day as it pertains to your partner. And then give me a thorn too. Like, what's something that didn't go so well today that we can improve on? And for a while, I don't know where he heard about that, but for a while we were doing it like every single day. And it was just a pretty short conversation at the end of the day. But I was really shocked at how much it improved things, because I knew if something went really wrong, I was like, all right, later today, he's going to ask me about my roses and thorns.
Can you imagine that? It was
kind
crazy. That kind of like where you feel like they have my back, like they really do care.
But it was also like, I don't have to jump on him right now, like upset about this, because I know at the end of the day, he's going to ask me about my roses and thorns, and we'll have a safe, fairly pleasant conversation about it. It's never an easy conversation, but it won't be combative.
Of course it's not. Yeah. You're trying, you're making an intentional effort for it not to be combative. Of course. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing I've heard this called is a poo sandwich. I like to keep our podcast PG rated at best. So it had a more R-rated name, but for the poo sandwich, you have 2 pieces of bread with a piece of poo in the middle. Anyway, we have 2 great things that we love about our partner that we're getting right. And then in the middle, we discuss something that's like, this thing could use some work. Didn't love that.
Yeah.
And sandwiching that with the good things on the outside, the bread, made it easier to talk about the uncomfortable thing in the middle.
Right. Yeah. And I'm hearing the groans of people like, can't people just, whether it's a male or female, like, can't they just take why do I have to like come up with a compliment to give them give them a constructive feedback?
Jimmy.
And I don't think that's what she's saying. I think that she's just saying like, I was going to give them a compliment anyways. So I was already going to give them 2 compliments, but I did have a constructive feedback. Why not just sandwich them together? I could go constructive feedback, compliment. I could go compliment, constructive feedback, but you know what? I think I'm just going to sandwich them.
Well, hey, this was like, this was a routine that we had. It was an agreement and a routine. So
love that, yes.
It wasn't just out of nowhere. I wasn't like, I wanted to say this constructive thing, but I don't want to hurt his feelings. It wasn't like that. It was like, it was another weird thing that we started doing every night, where it was like, tell me something wonderful about myself, and then tell me something that didn't go so well. And then at the end, massage it with a little another something wonderful. So, so that it doesn't hurt so bad. I
didn't come up with this, but it reminds me of, I love the concept of keeping short accounts in the relationship. And that's exactly how you do it. It's exactly how you do it. You have to be open to to listening to them, but from that place, man, that's real. That's where your relationship gets deep, and the deepness and the bond together is what prevents the complacency and the roommate phase. Because roommates, I mean, of course, the way we're describing this, like, of course, good roommates could still be like, I really do care about how you experience things. What we're talking about is a more disconnected roommates when you're supposed to be in an intimate bond together and you're not, so.
Okay.
Right, hit me with some more.
In the interest of time, we're going to keep these next ones a little bit shorter, because toward the end of the episode, Jimmy and I have some gems to share with you from Esther Perell's book, Mating in Captivity. You guys are really going to love these, because like keeping the spark alive is kind of her gig. She's kind of an expert on that. And I just love the advice that she gives. So we'll go over.
That was a really good sell, by the way.
Oh, thank
I would have never thought about that. I could implement that more.
Oh.
Yeah, that made me want to listen to the end, and I'm not even listening.
Maybe I should sell things. That I wish she was paying me for that. That would be amazing. This is not a paid endorsement. I just love that book.
Right.
So, unresolved conflict, and be careful, Jimmy, because I know that you could go on for hours on this one.
I won't do it. I won't do it.
But if there's simmering unresolved conflict, that can contribute to a roommate feeling, because it's hard to be snuggly and close and romantic with someone who we're secretly really upset with.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Was that pretty succinct, or do you feel
that was so? No, that was so good. I'm not going to add anything else to it.
I knew I had to calm you down. I can see you over there.
Settle in, people. I'm about to talk about conflict.
Right. On next week's episode.
We will continue talking about. No, you said it perfectly. That one of the biggest reasons that we're experiencing distance and disconnection in our relationship is because we're not properly, I don't want to use the word resolving conflicts, because we learned, unfortunately, from Gottman that 60% of your conflicts aren't going to be resolved.
69.
Yeah, they're not going to be resolved. It's right. I try to forget that. So it's not about resolving the conflicts. It's about working through them. It's about repairing, because you can repair. You can validate. You can empathize. You can understand. You can be curious about your partner's what's going on, and you can do all those things even with the conflict, even if it doesn't get resolved. And you can move through that to a healthier place with your partner. And that's a lot better than what unfortunately happens, which is people get the attitude of, what's the point in me even bringing this up? Because they're not going to listen.
Right.
When you get to that place, I mean, in my opinion, that's where I want both of you. That's where I want to be. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a coach, but I would look at both of you and say, this is an extremely important area of your relationship, and if you're not taking it seriously, it's going to wreck it. The last quote I'll give, I was reading, I actually have it right here. This isn't a promotion for this, but I was reading Gottman's book, Fight Right. And sorry, if anyone's like, wait, you showed the book too fast.
Yeah, I can see it. There we go.
Fight Right. They said that the first 3 minutes of a conflict, how that goes, determines not only the rest of the conflict. Like if you start out a conflict and you're both just at each other's throats, criticism, defensiveness, contempt for each other, passive aggressiveness, you just all the things that aren't respectful and vulnerable. The first 3 minutes, not only do they determine the rest of how the conflict is going to go, it's going to whether that conflict spirals into just a mess. 96% of the time, it determined how the trajectory of the entire relationship would go 7 years later.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing conflict correctly together, if one of you is just like, I don't care, I'm going to do it however I want to, in the most toxic way possible, that kills your relationship. And that's all I'm going to say about that. The book does a really good job at just breaking down, well, what does healthy look like? I mean, if you really want to, we could do a whole episode on that, but
amazing. Anyways. No, I love it. I'm going to have to go grab that one too. So, and the last point on here is external distractions. This is a really, really tough one for me. I have a busy brain. I'm the type of person who always has to be at reading something or thinking about something. It's very hard for me to just be quiet and listen to my partner. The reviewers of our podcast might that might sound familiar to them. I'm a little bit of a chronic interrupter, and it's hard for me to quiet my brain down and just be quiet and listen. This strains my relationship. I let distractions inside my head and outside of them keep me from really hearing my partner sometimes when he has important things to tell me. Do you have that experience too, Jimmy?
No.
No, it's just me.
No, it's
and
not
a lot of the
it's,
listeners. Yeah.
Yeah. Millions of other people. What I was going to say is, like, when I think about your relationship, like, your relationship is the priority. Like, work can so easily become a distraction. Is work important? Absolutely, work is important. Are kids important? Kids are absolutely important. Are your hobbies important? Of course they are. Like alone time, just all that stuff that supports us. Like, of course we need to feel fulfilled in this life, and we need to, but like, it can so easily become a distraction for your relationship health. So you have to be intentionally cognizant of, even from my perspective, like, I want to build this thing on social media. Like, I want to make videos for people. I'm doing this podcast, but all this stuff is taking time away from my wife and our relationship. So I have to ask myself, where am I making intentional deposits into our relationship? Because if I'm not making intentional deposits and I'm still doing all these other things, which is work in a sense, then I'm building something else over here. I'm not building and sustaining our relationship together. So it just comes down to, you can ask yourself, well, how much is enough? Well, that's a great question for your partner.
It is. It is.
Ask them, do you feel like I'm distracted with work? Because a lot of people, not only will we not ask that question, but we don't really care what their opinion is on it. What if
because we think to ourselves, to hear the answer.
It's very hard to hear.
Yeah. Because I imagine myself, if I were to ask my partner, do you think I'm distracted by work? It would be an immediate yes. Immediately yes. And so that's the kind of thing that keeps me from wanting to ask that question, because that yes
100%
kind of hurts to hear. It kind of hurts to hear your
very
partner
much
say,
hurts to hear.
Yes, I think you're distracted and you're not paying enough attention to me and our relationship. That's hard to receive. Even though I want to know that, it's still hard to hear it.
Yeah. And when you can have those conversations where that person can say, yeah, I do feel like you've been distracted, or I do feel like you've been neglecting me in this area. And you can actually have those conversations productively. That's a huge win for your relationship. And that really does help with the kind of bridging the disconnection back to connection.
Yes, it does. So, Jimmy, let's talk about sparks. Are you ready? Let's Esther
I want to
Perell.
add logs to the fire.
Let's do it. The fire is looking sad. Let's throw some logs on. So this is one of my favorite takeaways from Esther Perell's Mating in Captivity.
Okay.
This is her number one tip, I think. It's weird that I'm starting with number one. That's how you get people to navigate away from the podcast. But
no.
The number
You've
one,
them in, I promise.
The other ones aren't as good, but this one's pretty great. So
well, now you really made it worse.
I know. I want them to be like, go away, guys. Stop listening.
You could have lied and been like, the others are great, but you should know. But you
Jimmy,
went,
they're all
you're
great.
Honest.
They're all great, but this is my favorite. How about that? Maybe you
the
will like the other ones better.
Listeners appreciate your honesty.
I'm nothing if not honest. So when you see your partner in their element, this is kind of fun. It's hard to remember from the beginning of your relationship how incredibly sexy it was to meet this new person and see them doing something that they loved or something that they were really good at. I can remember, I was fairly far into my relationship. And when I met Chris, I was a graphic designer. That's what I would do. That was my full-time job. And usually he didn't see me unless I was off work and I wasn't working. But one day he came over too early and I was still sitting at the computer and he was like, leaning over my shoulder going like, oh, what are you working on there? And I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but I was like 12 years into that career. So I was like a ninja on the keyboard with all the shortcuts. It's not even necessarily that the design was so good, but it was really, really fast. And I'll never forget it. He's watching me click around and I'm sure my mouth's open because I'm in my graphic designer mode. And he was like, I cannot believe how turned on I am right now. And I was like, what is happening? But really, I get the same feeling when I see him, when I go to his job place and I see him and he's just kicking butt and taking names. There's something really spectacular about seeing your partner in their element, being good at something, being in the flow. That's great. We don't see our partners like that enough. And we never see roommates like that, but it's good to catch your partner
that is so true. And people discount that. That's why you should go visit your partner at work occasionally. You should go there. Here's why it's so sexy, because it has nothing to do with you. You're seeing them in their, in their flow, in their experience. And you're not a part of that. And that's why it feels so like, wow, oh my gosh, like they're
Who
their own
is
person.
that?
Like they're,
Yeah.
like who is, it's very sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, yeah, you've talked before about seeing him, and this goes back to taking an interest in the things that they're passionate about. When you went to go visit Chris at the mechanic, and he was just like talking about, he's like, let me show you over here. I'm rebuilding this. I'm rebuilding. And like that's such a great tip to see your partner in the element.
Is this the part where I brag on my partner? Because now so my partner is a mechanic, but he's a helicopter mechanic who also flies the helicopters. So don't get me wrong, it's very sexy to see him doing all the wrench things and making things work. But the very first time that he was like, hey, let me take you up in the helicopter, and he had to stand there and give me that boring spiel about, the whole spiel, like keep your hands in here and don't touch the things. I was like, I cannot wait until this flight's over for other reasons. It's funny. It's just amazing to see somebody be really good at their job, Yes,
it's attractive.
It's very attractive.
I keep using the word sexy, but that's not the best. It's just attractive to see somebody in their element. Yeah. I love that Esther pointed that out. What's another tip?
Okay. When it says
what's another sub part?
Yeah, I know. It's funny the way that this is worded in a strange way. It says, when they are away, when we are apart, and when we reunite. Those are the things that she says can spark attraction between two people. So making some intentional time away from each other to go be our own selves and discover things that light us up. Yes. And then also reuniting after that with the new stories of the things that we've seen. We're a slightly different person every time we come back together with our partner because we've seen and experienced things, that are different from the last time they saw us.
Yeah. If your partner is like huge into hiking and or skiing or something, but you have no interest in that, make sure that they know that you want them to go experience those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
With another group that you like, give them that freedom.
Oh, and ask them about what they saw when they were there. What was the best part of your hike today? I want to hear about that.
They will come back feeling, even though you didn't go with them and there was a part of them that wanted you to come.
Right.
They still respect you and your individuality. And they're like, that's okay. Like, this is a part of a healthy, like Ricky can go, even if she wants her partner to come with her on something that he doesn't really care about.
Trivia nights. She can
go with her friends and have a fantastic time. And you coming back to reunite, like that can be a really special. Yeah,
it really can. And he hates trivia nights. He does not like to go, but I guarantee every single time I come home from something like that, he'll be like, tell me about one of the questions where you nailed it.
Neat.
Like, was there a question that you knew and nobody else knew? And I usually have an answer to that. Yeah, that's very sweet.
Okay. So go ahead. Ricky's got to go in a couple minutes. So let's hit these rapid fire.
So we'll hit them. But you know what's great? The next one is one that you already talked about earlier. Esther Perell says that sparks fly when your partner surprises you. So I was so glad that you brought that up earlier because I love that. That's spark making. The whole premise of mating in captivity is that spark and attraction kind of get crushed by familiarity and regularity, and surprises combat that. Surprises kind of put us on uneven ground. And that was such an exciting time when we first met our partner, or if your relationship is new, it's those surprises. That's what makes things so intriguing. Like, I want to see more of this. I want to know more about this person because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. And there's something kind of sexy about that. I think you can say sexy there.
Yeah. I love that. Hit me with another one.
The last one, this is such a good one. We can spend some time on this and then we'll cut this one off.
Okay.
Esther Perell says it's very attractive when I see my partner through the eyes of another. This could be like when let's say you and your partner are at a party and your partner is telling a story. And suddenly you look around and you're watching all of the other people who are listening, just wrapped, like this story is so good. And in that moment, it's not you just looking at your dusty old partner that you've been staring at for 10 plus years. You're seeing them through the eyes of your friends who are so impressed, or they're laughing because your partner's making them laugh.
That has happened. Yes.
Yeah. That's an incredibly attractive thing.
Yes. I think Emily's way more attracted to me when she notices that like I made other people laugh.
Yeah.
Than her necessarily. Like she just be like, "You're so funny," you know. But she doesn't ever say that to me when it's just her. And I never once has she ever said that.
You notice it more when other people. When 100%. Other people notice it, you know.
It's like, you're really funny, you know that. Like you just had those people laughing. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. That is so attractive. I love that. The only other thing that I will say, and we've touched on this so many times, so it's really just a summary at this point, but like small acts of kindness. Like think about, like I know how difficult this is sometimes, but like if you've been with someone for a little while, like you know them, and if you don't, then study them for this week. Like like do the little things that would make their day. Like just those small acts of kindness, like going to get, like I know Emily loves Starbucks. If I really wanted to make her feel like the next time we go somewhere, like, hey, let's swing by Starbucks and get you something, she'd be like, oh my gosh. Like it's those little things where it's like, it didn't take any effort for me to swing by Starbucks, but like I did it for her. Totally. Like think about what you can do just for them and be more intentional about creating a habit where it's like, I want to do at least one thing, those small things add up. Those small things I promise you, it's not exaggerating to say that they make or break the whole thing. Like these tiny little moments of intentional connection.
And I think that last piece you just gave everybody is very hopeful and inspiring, because maybe you were listening to this going, there's so many problems that we have. Where do I even start? We're so deeply embroiled in the roommate mentality. I don't know if we'll get out. But Jimmy's right. It's small things regularly can really turn everything around. You find you start doing those things and that creates a moment of connection that maybe starts to happen regularly. You get something that you can cling on to and build upon. So then maybe it's very regular. Maybe Jimmy falls into the habit of regularly grabbing Emily some Starbucks. That's a regular habit. He doesn't even have to think about it anymore. Now he can add something else on top of it, you know?
100%. And you take those into the check-ins, the weekly check-ins, or if you want to be absolutely amazing, you can do daily check-ins like Ricky. But you take those into weekly check-ins and you're like, so these are some things that I've been trying to do intentionally just for you. Does this fill your love tank? Sometimes they'll go, not really. And you can go, okay. So I don't want to do things that don't fill your love, that like don't make a difference. So like what would make a difference? Like, you know, and so those are those important. Sometimes you just have to like keep going and eventually they'll go, I did really like that. And you go, okay, cool. So like make a mental note. That's one of the areas that fills his or her love tank. Yeah.
Totally. Well, this was good. This was a fun one.
It was good.
I like it.
Short and sweet. I kind of like it when you're pressed for time. It's like sometimes we gotta, you know.
I think you and I both, we love this topic so much that we tend to go off on tangents and ramble a little bit.
It's better just to keep it. Can I tell you something really quickly though, before we leave?
Sure.
Our most popular on YouTube, we have a video for anyone that cares if they're watching us on YouTube. We have a video that's like over 60,000 views, which is just absolutely amazing for us.
That's wonderful.
But listen to this. This is the crazy part. It's our only video where it's like an hour and a half long.
Are you serious? Okay, wait a second.
From like, I'm not trying to like start anything. I'm just saying.
But you
like,
just
I'm
did.
Just saying.
That's what's happening here. Our episodes
it's a coincidence. Maybe
longer.
It's a coincidence. I'm just saying. We should try one more time. We'll film another hour and a half one.
Was it like a really regimented episode, or was it more rambly?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen.
We'll have to check that out. Because if it's a long, rambling hour and a half, they better buckle up, because that's going to happen again. Because those are so much fun. They're fun. Up. Really.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to let you go because I don't want you to be late on account of us.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. But hey, right before you go, I want to say I've noticed an increase in the emails that we've been getting about the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to thank you. Jimmy and I, not only do we
Oh my
read
gosh,
every
yes.
single one, but I think we reply to most of them that we
Yeah,
get.
as much as I can.
Yeah. And they're so helpful. They're so helpful.
And-
they encourage us. They give us direction on the podcast. Go ahead, Jimmy.
And I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to say something that I know you want to say as well. Ricky just reminded me, because I don't look at it as much, but she reminded me that a lot of people have left reviews, and we've never asked anybody to leave a review. We don't push for that. Whoever, and anyone who's actually leaving reviews for us, like, thank you so much. Like,
Thank you.
I don't,
yes.
Yeah, I don't push for that. I don't think that that's something that I would ever pressure anybody. Anyone that's doing that on their own volition, we are so grateful for you. Because I'm sure it does help the algorithm and all that stuff.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but we're just grateful for you. Even if you don't leave a review, if you're like, I'm never going to leave a review, I'm still grateful for you.
Thanks for being here listening anyway. But you review leavers. You're our favorites. Just saying. Okay, cool. Well, I'm headed out.
Thank
this
you guys.
was amazing. We'll see you guys next time.
We'll chat next time.